After doing this so long, you would think nothing surprises me, but don't worry, somebody always steps up their game and there's always a couple surprises in store, just like some of the things we'll see in this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to St. Augustine, Florida, where this was the scene just a few days ago when the Coast Guard announced on one of its Facebook pages that cruise and partner agencies were searching for a 25-year-old man who was last seen departing Lighthouse Park boat ramp in his 12-foot John boat, and unfortunately did not return. Crews searched throughout the night looking for the young man, and unfortunately were unable to find him that night. Now, if you don't follow your local Coast Guard Facebook page, I highly recommend you do, because you're going to see stories like this of things you need to look for out on your waterways, such as missing persons. Now, the missing persons reports are always the toughest ones for me to read, because a lot of times these don't have the best ending, especially when I read somebody's disappeared on a 12-foot John boat. Obviously, that vessel's not going to have a lot of safety equipment on it. So once again, we talk about being surprised. Well, imagine my surprise when a day or so later, these images come out. This is the 25-year-old being discovered by the Coast Guard after being out to sea for over 30 hours. The young man let the Coast Guard know that he went out for an early morning fishing trip as he had done many times. Unfortunately, his little 12-foot boat was sideswiped by a wave, knocking him into the water and inundating the vessel with water. The young man then climbed back into the vessel, but by the time he was able to get back on, the boat had been dragged almost 12 miles offshore. The young man did try and get the boat's engine restarted. Unfortunately, the vessel had been partially submerged and was unsuccessful in doing so, and in fact actually had to release the motor from the boat at a certain point to try and keep the partially submerged vessel afloat. Fortunately, after 30 hours on the water, though, a Coast Guard air crew winds up spotting the young man and they wind up getting him back to shore safely. The Coast Guard does urge you, if you're going offshore, make sure to have the proper safety equipment. Things like an EPIRB, a radio, and a life jacket could 100% save your life. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us up to the coast of New Jersey, where a family got a surprise of their own when they decided to take their 56-foot Viking, the Gemini, out on a fishing trip. Only a few moments after dropping lines in the water, the owner of the vessel looks to his left, sees 4 people in the water screaming for help, and their vessel bobbing up and down with just the tip of the bow out of the water. The crew of the Gemini quickly jumps into action to attempt to rescue the 4 men. The first thing they do is try and get life jackets out into the water, because it doesn't appear any of these guys had any life jackets on at the time. In fact, when you review the images, it appears all 4 men were sharing one throwable cushion as a flotation device. Later, the men said everything happened so fast, they didn't have a chance to be able to get the life jackets out of the compartment they were located in, which is just a reminder, even if you have the proper safety equipment when you're offshore, you have to have quick and immediate access to it. In fact, it's even a good idea before you go offshore, have an emergency safety meeting with the entire crew that's going to be on your vessel. Assign somebody 2 life jackets. If things start to go wrong, that person's only job is to get the life jackets out of the compartment and hand them out. I even assigned somebody the personal locator beacon and let the entire crew know that's the person that has it. If we wind up in the water, that's who we need to get to. And then typically as the captain, I'll leave myself responsible for the ditch bag, which will be a waterproof bag that's typically going to have a cell phone in it, flares, and possibly even some light snacks, and a handheld radio, so if we get stuck in the water for a few hours, we have a way to communicate, something to eat, and we know help is on the way. But great job by the Gemini in this situation, recognizing the danger and jumping in and saving this crew. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to California, where this was the scene about a week ago when a Coast Guard helicopter air crew wound up rescuing 9 adults after their 47-foot fishing vessel wound up running aground on the San Clemente Islands. The Coast Guard wound up receiving a distress call from the vessel Jerry A at approximately 4 a.m., stating that they'd run aground and the vessel was taking on water. The Coast Guard station San Diego launched a Jayhawk helicopter crew to the scene. Once they arrived, the helicopter spotted 8 individuals standing safely on shore, with 1 person still on the vessel. The Coast Guard crew quickly launched their rescue swimmer into the water, who instructed the last person on the vessel to go ahead and make their way to land, where they wound up pulling all 9 people safely from the land and getting them back to shore with no injuries reported. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like Gemini Fishing and Andrew Clark Neal did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here.